Everyone, thank you so much for being here. Before we kick off this week's episode, just a quick ask. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell to make sure that you never miss an episode, never miss out on any of the strategies and tactics that we're sharing to help you continue charting your own path to freedom. And if you'd like to go deeper with any of this, we've launched a free Facebook group, which you can join at pathtofreedom.com/group. And we've linked that in the show notes to make it easy for you to find. All right. Thank you again for being here. Let's drop in to the episode. Hey, everyone, and welcome to the Path to Freedom podcast. Today, I'm joined by Leslie Hassler, who's the president of Your Biz Rules. Leslie, welcome.
Howdy, Wes. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this. We had a good conversation a few weeks ago, and I mean, really, everything you do, with your clients, everything you talk about, you've just recently released a book, which we're going to talk about, is right up my alley in terms of things that personally I'm interested in learning about, and a lot of the people that I work with and coach are trying to learn about too. So I think there's a lot that we can cover today. And I think everyone's going to get a lot of value from it. So thank you for being here.
Excited. I know we've got a lot in common. And we'll start off by saying the freedom gene is very high.
Yes, indeed. And look, I think it's something that everyone's looking for more of, right? And and like one of the things I've kind of learned over the years is freedom means different things to different people.
For sure.
But there are certainly some commonalities, I think, in terms of what most people are striving for, when it comes to having more freedom in their lives. And it's one of the reasons I'm so glad we connected and excited to have you on the show, because a lot of what you do, and I'll let you kind of introduce your company because you can do it better than I can, but you're coaching business owners to really get out of business ownership what they set out to do, which often isn't the case, unfortunately. I know I've seen it many times where, someone goes and starts their own business. In my world, it's franchise businesses, but they do it because they want more control of their time. They want to be able to earn more money, but they want more autonomy. They're tired of working for someone else and, being controlled in so many different ways. And then, a year, 2 years into it, they have less time and they're controlled by their business or almost a slave to their business. And so I know a lot of what you do and teach and coach is helping people avoid that or get out of that so that they can reap all the benefits that come with business ownership. And so it's something that I know we're both pretty passionate about.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, freedom has many currencies, and we all have different priorities to those currencies. And in truth, I think every phase of your life puts different priorities,
Totally.
When my kids were younger, my greater priority was on time freedom. My kids are in college now. I have different priorities that we're working on. But I think ultimately, and you said it so well, is, people come into business seeking some sort of freedom, whatever that currency might be. And freedom is the very first thing they sacrifice and get on the hustle and grind bus. And it is so strange that it is that sacrifice that actually keeps you away from ever having the freedom you want. So we have to do things a little differently. We've got to turn things on its head in order to realize the freedom, because many of these things you can start realizing today. You don't have to wait until you're successful or big enough, right? It's what you choose to do on a daily basis that will impact whether or not you realize it.
Well, yeah, totally. And I think so there's some mindset shifts that have to come with that, right? Because I think society has kind of taught us that it's the grind, the hustle is respected. So I think there's a lot of people that just, they almost feel guilty if they have their own business and they're not working 60, 70 hours a week, because that's just kind of what, you hear, right? And those are the stories that people write about is, the entrepreneur that, slept on the floor of their office for 2 years, in order to get the business where it needs to be. So I think there's a mindset shift in that regard that needs to happen. And then, coming into it, there's a lot of things that, if you have the clarity of vision of what you're really working towards, there's a lot of potholes that you can avoid. Um, especially if you're getting good coaching and guidance from someone that's done it before, to make it less likely that, you do kind of become a slave to your business and become a bottleneck where everything has to run through you. Um, and so I think that's something that a lot of people, unfortunately, when they set out to start a business, they're not getting the coaching and guidance that they could be, and so they have to learn a lot of these lessons the hard way. And you've seen it, I've seen it. It's a recipe for burnout. Most people, if they get 3-4 years into working that hard, grinding that hard in their business, even if they're making far more money than they were before, it can definitely be a recipe for burnout.
It is, and that's what we want to help people avoid in a lot of ways, is understanding that the hustle and grind is an old paradigm. It's something that's in our DNA, if you will, because it's been so consciously celebrated and consciously celebrated in our culture. And if you're using social media as your coach, then that's all you're ever going to see, right?
Yeah.
And what I have found is the people that have adopted, we call it scaling rich. It's kind of the scaling rich philosophy, in that you have a healthy, financially stable business and a well thought through, a well balanced life. Because if
Yeah.
you're in business to get a better life, then your business should add value, not detract. But it's the people that have figured out how to how to scale rich. If they've worked with us or work with other coaches, they are actually really super quiet about it. You don't
Mm.
hear them talking about it because it sounds so crazy. And if
Yeah.
and it sounds honestly too easy. And if it's too easy, hello, this is part of the hustle and grind culture, right? If it's
Yeah.
too easy, if it's not hard work that's, to be earned, then we don't instinctively value it. So what you'll
Yeah.
find is the people that have achieved it, that you are looking around, listeners, looking around and going, oh my gosh, that person seems to have so much freedom. What are they doing? Chances are they've stepped back from the hustle and grind. They've
Mm.
chosen to get clarity of vision, like what you've spoken to, and they've aligned their business to operate within these boundaries. Um, and at the end of the day, they will look back and tell you it wasn't hard. It actually was simple. It was easy. And they wish they would have done it 3, 4, 5 years ago. So it's like we could just got to get off the hustle and grind bus for a bit to see
Yeah.
that there is a better way, and to understand that you can have what you want from your business and have a healthy business. We like to say that's the land of and versus the land of or.
Mm. I like that. So let me ask you this: has it always been has this always been the case, or is the hustle and grind not as necessary today because of the world we live in, technology? I mean, all the different things that really any business owner, even any solopreneur, is going to have access to at their fingertips, relatively affordable. Is that what's kind of changed the game, or is this always been the case, that it doesn't have to be that hard and doesn't have to be such a grind?
I do believe that the last 20 years have contributed to the fact that
Uh-huh.
it doesn't have to be hard.
Yeah.
Let's face it, life in the 1500s, it was hard. Life in the
Yeah.
1800s, it was hard. Industrial
Yep.
Revolution, it was hard. Like there's some actuality to life that says it was hard. But we live in some of the most abundant times the whole world has ever seen, even when you factor in situations where life is still very hard. But
Yeah.
collectively, we have more abundance. However, collectively, we also tend to be a little more negative about that abundance. So I think we're going through an identity crisis, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think there are a couple of things that make life easier. One is, okay, I'm just thinking about this the other day. Can you imagine if you're Amazon reseller, right? As a business, and that's what you're doing. That as a business, as an opportunity, did not exist,
Yeah.
right? 20, 30
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
If you think Amazon Marketplace actually came as the birth, I believe it was in the economic crisis of 07, 08. I might be off. It might have been
It
actually
sounds about right.
the
It sounds
dot-com
about
bust of
right.
2000. It's in there.
Yeah.
That's where the Amazon Marketplace even came about. So even if
Hmm.
you say it's as late as, or as, yeah, late as 2000, that's 24 years ago.
Yeah.
There are so many more ways to be in business today that did not exist. And we're shifting from this culture of hard work, backbreaking work,
Right.
into intellect, right? Into the information age.
Yep.
That is what makes it so much more scalable, what it makes it so much easier. It's just that we haven't adapted our work habits to align with that. And I'll give you a quick little story. I was in a networking meeting, and there was a CPA firm that stood up, and they're like, what we really need is help finding young people who are willing to work 80-hour work weeks as a normal and additional time during tax season. We just
Yep.
can't get anybody to stay. And I was
Shocker.
like, I don't want to work 80-hour work weeks or more.
Yeah.
Why in the world would that be the expectation? And again,
For probably for very low pay on top of that.
yeah, well, even if it was decent pay, like you said before, at what point in time
Yeah.
does the money no longer matter?
Yeah. You'll burn out. You can't do more than a year or two of that. Even if you're young and full of energy and don't have a family yet, it's still not sustainable.
And that's the key. It's not sustainable. But yet, what's so interesting to me is if I were the owner of the CPA firm, what I would be looking at is how do we take the work that we do and re envision it, innovate it in such a way that we are actually the leading CPA firm that all the talent wants to come to because we don't do 80-hour work weeks, even in tax season. Right?
Yeah.
That's the problem to solve in that business instance. But that's, I think it's the struggle that we go through. We think it's about more when it's really just about better.
We'll get right back to the episode, but I wanted to quickly share a free resource with you. If you're curious about franchise ownership and want to learn more about how countless people, including myself, have leveraged franchising as a way to create more freedom for themselves and to take control of their livelihood, I've put together an ebook. It's called Franchise Wealth Creation, and it's the perfect starting point for anyone that's just curious to learn more about this whole franchise thing and how I've helped hundreds of other people navigate all the steps involved in understanding and researching franchising. So click the link in the show notes, fill out a short form. I'll send you the ebook. I think it's a great starting point if you're curious at all about learning more about franchising. All right, let's get back to the episode. Yeah, well, I think I was sharing with you that, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs go through this, if they are beginning to scale, or I love how you say it, scale rich, and actually start to build their business in a way that they themselves of the owner are able to step back a little bit and have a little more control of their time, and they're building out a team of good people around them that they can delegate to and that are bringing ideas and energy and things that are going to help the business continue to grow and scale. Like in one of our businesses, which is really my wife's business that she has built and scaled, she went through a little bit of I guess you'd call it an identity crisis as we were really starting to scale. Where like she would actually feel guilty, right? Because she's like, I'm not working as hard, I'm not working as many hours as I was, in the first year of this business, and I've got 8 people out running sales appointments today. I've got 5 people out doing installs, and I'm taking my daughter to get our nails done at 2:00 in the afternoon. And like, believe me, she's cool with it now, but it took a little while
It
for
does.
her to like wrap her head around that and I guess rationalize it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the identity crises that you go through. I mean, obviously, we've talked about the hustle and grind as an identity crisis, but when you're in that stage where you're on your scaling path and you find that you're questioning, well, what good am I? What value do I bring to the business? I feel guilty because other people are working and da 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 da, all that thing. What that tells me is, in that moment, what you're really struggling with is your personal value. Like, the value that you bring to the business has been based entirely on your effort, on your ability to do the work. But to scale, you have to let that go and understand that your value shifts to
Hmm.
ensuring that all the work gets done, not doing it all,
Right.
gets done. And it is always in this place that people have identity crises. I think we may have shared, I had a client that when we first started working together, recently engaged, had promised her husband she was going to take a month-long honeymoon. Sounds phenomenal. They were going to Italy. Phenomenal, right? In part because she worked so much. Her fiance was like, come on, it's my turn.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we worked in her business to make this possible. She left for the month. She came back and she sent me a little message. She goes, okay, Sunday night, sitting down to my laptop, and I'm petrified. I'm petrified at what I'm gonna find. And I was like, okay, well, first off, I'm really curious how many emails. She goes, 130. You only received 130 emails in a
It's
month.
not many over a month.
No, it's not. And she goes, yeah, every one of them was from the team. There were no problems. They were only keeping me in the loop. And about two
Wow.
weeks later, she's like, Leslie, I think I'm going to go get a job. And I went, why? Why? Why go get a job? She goes, well, I'm not valuable here anymore.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, isn't that interesting? I was like, oh, honey, that's okay. We just need to shift where you find value, right?
Mm,
And
yeah.
how the business, everything you wanted, you get. And you just don't want to be lost at the end of it, if you will. You want to
Mm,
be able to know what is next. And that's some of the things that we'd like to help people with, is really knowing where you're going to as the business owner, because you do go through these identity shifts. You do need to be able to recognize when they pop up, what's happening,
mm.
so that you
Yeah.
can become a stronger business owner.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's something that most people are not thinking about or getting guidance on if they are, contemplating taking that step into business ownership. And, I imagine there's a lot of business owners out there that have been at it for years now, on the hustle and grind, and they're not really thinking about it either, because they're just trying to keep their head above water. So,
Yeah.
kind of, I'd love to get into some tactical things, right?
Sure.
Because your firm basically, I mean, you guys work with a variety of different businesses, but mostly kind of service type businesses. Is that correct?
Yeah, about 90% of our clients are service providers, in one way, shape, or form. And I would say the last 34, 35 clients have been across 17 different industries. So to your point,
Yeah.
we work with a lot of variety in
Yeah.
there, and but primarily service.
So what are, I don't know if mistakes is even the right word, because I imagine with most of your clients, you're coming in at some point, they've already been in business for some period of time, right? They're not
Generally, yeah.
just getting started as new businesses. So, like, what are some of the most common areas that you see where, hey, these are some of the reasons that, either A, you're not getting the financial results that you would want from your business, or, B, you as the owner don't have the control of your time that you're looking for. Like, what are some of the more common areas that you and your team are able to come in and pretty much immediately pinpoint, like, hey, these are the things we need to focus on first, and help you get figured out, if that question makes sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And this is something we love to do, is basically come in and say, here's where you're weak, here's where you're doing well, here's opportunity that you may not even know that's here, and here's what to do. right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we typically find is it's multifaceted. Like there is no one problem, which, hey, this is why we love what we do. We get to work with,
Yeah.
across the entirety of the business because the problem is pervasive. But generally, it comes in a couple of forms. So one is money management. Money management in small business is not the same as personal money management. And that trips people up all the time. So
Mm-hmm.
that's generally an area we do a good amount of work in. Next part is people management, both in how do you be the better leader or be the leader you want to become in a business, but also how are you delegating? How are you enrolling and engaging your team members to be able to take things off your plate? And that is huge. We had a client that when we started with them, they had so much turnover. As we were getting some clarity of vision about what it is that we're going to build here, they lost two more members. So now it's just the owner, no employees.
Wow.
I know that's not fun, guys. Um, and what we were able to do is take them from that low point of no employees and start hiring the right employees. And it was so amazing when the owner was sharing she was like, I'm having a bad day, whatever it was. We all have bad days, right? And her team came in and they like start pulling things off her desk. They're like, you don't need to do this. This is me. I got it. See you in a little bit. And that's every entrepreneur's dream was to have
Yeah.
team members that come to you and say, yeah, you don't need to be doing this. I've got this. Give it to me. Right. They're that
Yeah.
empowered in the business. So I think people is as always there. I think purpose, especially the longer you're in the business and the longer you've been stuck on the hamster wheel, and the longer you've
Yeah.
been hustling, grinding, you lose touch with your purpose, or your
Mm-hmm.
purpose changed and you didn't even know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that.
And so it's just about getting clarity, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe we can drill into each of those kind of commonalities a little bit, the money management, the people aspect of it, and then the purpose. With the money management, you mentioned that managing your money in a small business is different than managing your personal finances. What are the differences?
Well, the first thing I would let you know is that when you're managing money in your business, most people manage to break even at the end of the year. They don't want a loss and they don't want a
Yeah,
profit, right?
sure. Yeah.
And that's very common advice in small business. Well, I would say is that common advice tends to leave you one disaster away from bankruptcy because you have no ability to weather a storm. So we share that profit is a reward from a business. And therefore, if you're going to have profit, you're going to pay taxes. And I get it. Who wants to pay taxes?
Yeah.
I do actually, because it means that we're profitable and I'm happy to pay
Yeah. It's
taxes.
better than getting a refund, right? Because you're losing money.
Yeah. But at the same time, I don't want to I want to make sure that our tax strategy in the business is effectively mitigating our taxes. Now that's
Right.
another professional. We work with lots of different professionals who look at that lens, but we have to change if you want financial freedom as one of your currencies, you have to change the way you're actually doing it. So we start with the end in mind and build backwards. We put in tools that I say are cloudy crystal balls because none of us know everything, right? But we put in cash flow management tools that are easy to use, that share with you what the money in your business is doing. But then we put in things like profit plans so that when you receive profit on a monthly basis, we are doing something with it. We're giving it purpose because money wants to grow and flow. That means
Mm-hmm.
if you have
Yeah.
debt, it tends to want to grow, right? If you have profits, it tends to want to grow. It
Yeah.
also, if it doesn't have purpose, wants to flow. And if you've ever nickeled and dimed yourself out of your profits in your business,
Yeah.
you know, you know
Yeah.
what that means. So we don't have to be control freaks, if you will. We have to have structure. And so that is one thing that I think most people think of managing money like balancing a checkbook. And that just manages your money from yesterday. It doesn't manage your money from today
Mm.
or even help you do it in the future. Hands down, this is life changing our business owners, when they've fully adopted it, they are doing really fun things at the end of the year. I've one client that's bought a couple new cars because the cars are broken down in the house. She's like, I need to be able to buy this. And I said, great, we've got it sitting in profit. Let's take that money. Here you
Yeah,
go. Right? That's freedom to me.
totally.
You can do what you need to do when you need to do it. You're not being fiscally irresponsible. If anything, you are fiscally way responsible, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's all great points, but yeah, the managing to break even, you do see that a lot. Because the thought is, hey, if I'm not really showing a profit, then I'm not paying taxes.
Yeah.
Right. But we just had something come up this week, right? Where, we essentially had a $40,000 unexpected expense in one of our businesses. And, we decided years ago, like we have a certain amount of cash reserves that we will
Yes.
always keep in that business. And still wasn't fun
Nope.
to pay that $40,000 unexpected expense, but we were able to swing it. It didn't, we didn't have to like pull money out of savings or investments to put it back in the business to cover that. Like, we were able to swing it. And it was more of just like a shitty afternoon than like a devastating, blow
Yeah.
to our business.
Yeah. You weren't having to rob Peter to pay Paul and
Yeah.
potentially financially cause instability in a business. Yeah, I agree. Nobody likes those surprises, but strangely enough, those surprises do happen. So
Oh,
a
sure.
reserve fund, we're totally on board with.
Yeah.
We use the rule of thumb 3 to 6 months, but I'll let you know, we've had businesses to where we've carried 9 months of reserve because of the business, because it made good
Yeah.
sense in the business. And at the end of the day, like you said, it's the lifeline, it's your parachute, and it's still your money, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. It's still your money. And so, you mentioned you have some businesses that maybe carry more cash reserves just due to the nature of the business. So that's something
Yeah.
else I wanted to ask you about, especially when you're talking about making the shift from managing the money you've already made to, managing the money you expect to make and having
Mhm.
a plan and a purpose for this money. Do you find that some businesses, due to the nature of the business, are harder to project or predict the type of revenue that you can expect to come in?
I was just scanning my brain. I think we all feel there's unpredictability in our businesses. We have a client right now. I remember the first year we grew, we quadrupled their business, and they were like, no, 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 this will never happen again. We can't guarantee anything. We can't count on anything. I was like, okay, well, for funsies, let's just try. Year two, did it again. Year three, did it again. So, what's stability, right? It really has you questioning, are we buying into the roller coaster so much that we
Mm,
never try to get off of it? And so I do believe that if you have some data in your business, you've been in business 2 to 3 years, you can get pretty darn close. You can
yeah.
get pretty accurate in your forecasting. Now, I'm thinking of some of my cyclical businesses where you have high months and then you have months you can barely make payroll with,
Yeah.
just because of the seasonality of a business.
Hmm.
Even then, we know there's 3 months out of the year where
Right.
it
Even then, if you've
doesn't.
got enough data looking back, you should still be able to have some idea like, okay, we're coming up on a slow time. So
Yep.
we need to be, because that was more where the question stemmed from, right? Because, I imagine with you working primarily with service companies in some capacity, you probably have some that are, more recurring revenue, right? It's a monthly service that someone's paying for, or a subscription or a membership, or like in the world of
Yeah.
franchising, right? Like this is a big differentiator between some of the different business models out there. A lot of people are looking for predictable recurring revenue
Mhm.
models, whereas then, you're going to have like our franchise business is not recurring revenue, right?
Yeah.
For the most part, it's a, one and done type of sell, and they're bigger transactions, but we start every month at zero in revenue and we have to build our way back up. And
Yep.
I I mean, we've been in business for 6.5 years now, so I can certainly look back at prior years, or same month last year, or same month
Mhm.
3 years ago, and start to see some trends.
Yes.
So yeah, I think, unless you're in your first year or two of business, there's probably not much excuse to say, hey, my business is too unpredictable to really have any idea of what's coming down the pike.
Yeah, be careful of the mindset things you buy into, right? I was sitting here counting, like, even just current clients, how many of them are based on recurring revenue and how many of them have to go get new revenue every single month.
Hmm.
And I'll tell you, I think it's only about 25% that have
Okay.
recurring revenue. Majority
Yeah.
of them are having to go out, and I call it the hunter. You're having to go hunt and find the food for the month,
Yeah.
right? So there are ways, there are strategies. If you want to get off the feast and famine roller coaster, you can, but you have to first choose to get off. You can't stay on the ride, and expect the circumstances to change. You've got to do something different enough.
If you've been considering business ownership, if you're already a business owner looking to expand and you're curious about franchising, I'd love to connect with you, answer any initial questions that you have, talk about a specific franchise, and detail the exact process that I use and have taken hundreds of people through to help them understand franchise ownership, find the right franchise for them, and conduct the necessary due diligence. Click the link in the show notes if you'd like to schedule a free, no obligation strategy call. I look forward to talking with you. And now back to the episode. So the other thing you mentioned was people, right? And I believe, really just based on my personal experience, that I don't care what the business is, the people part's the hardest part. Finding
Mm.
and keeping good people is going to be one of, if not the hardest parts of being successful as a business owner. So, what are some tips or tactics that you've been able to help your clients with when it comes to, because you gave that example earlier where the employees knew the business owner was having a rough day and they proactively came and said, hey,
Yeah.
let us take some of this from you. Like, that does sound like a dream to a lot of business owners. So like
Yeah.
how can someone get to that point, especially because I think there's a couple of problems at hand. One, it's probably finding the right people and setting the right expectations and incentivizing them. I think the other problem that you probably see pretty often is business owners having a hard time letting go.
Hmm. Yeah, it's multifaceted. I will say, like the chalk it up to culture as an easy thing. We talk about the employee value proposition, which is multifaceted. It involves a lot of different things. But to your point is, I think when a business owner isn't clear about the value that they provide to employees, that is a source number one of all problems, because it really, for the business owner, they're not confident. They're not confident. They're always worried about people, leaving their business. And hey, I'm going to human, right? I've got a phenomenal team. If any of them leave, of course, it's going to have an impact on my business. But I'm also confident in the value that we're providing to our employees and how we treat our employees, then I know that if and when that happens, we'll be okay, because we'll
Mm,
be able to find somebody as good, if not better, to fill the gap that is created. Because I mean, we're not in the age where you stay at one job and you work it for 45 years of your life. We're in a little bit more of a transient nature. So I expect turnover. I just do everything we can to mitigate it. And I think that is the key there. So I know defining your culture and really getting super clear on the vision and the mission and the values of the business, that naturally aligns the right people. It also naturally sheds the wrong people.
yeah.
And there's this, especially in environments where I won't say changing culture, we're strengthening culture. Your low performers, your more negative personalities, the people that are actually slowing the business down happen to generally be people who've been with you the longest, who you are extremely loyal to, but they got you where you are, right? They were a critical part of it. They're just
Yeah.
not part of the formula for where you can go next.
Yeah. I think I've seen that pretty often. We've had
Yeah.
that in our businesses, right? And I mean, I know we had a business that we sold about a year ago, and looking back on it, we had like a key person in that business that was with us from the beginning and
Yeah.
instrumental in getting us to that first $1 million in revenue.
Yep.
But then it became clear that that was not the person to take us to the next level, and we drug our feet on
Yeah.
making a move. And I don't know that I would have acknowledged this in the moment, but looking back on it, it's pretty clear we drug our feet for no other reason than it was going to be inconvenient and it was going
Yeah.
to be temporarily painful, because we had this one key person that's essentially running this business for us,
Yep.
right? Where we had other things that we were spending most of our working time on, my wife and we had a pretty good lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
And I knew, and then the business was good enough, right? It
Yeah.
wasn't like we were losing money or bleeding or anything like that. It was good enough, but I certainly knew it wasn't anywhere near as good as it could have been. But every time, the conversation came up like, hey, we should probably make a move here. It was like, yeah, but that's going to suck for like 3 or 4 months, and that's
Yeah.
going to really disrupt our kind of cushy lifestyle that we've got going here. And sometimes I think it's just necessary to bite the bullet on something like that and make the changes you need to make.
Yeah. And we're people. And as small business owners, we will view our employees as family, which always means it's a hard conversation.
Mhm.
But I have found that if you're dissatisfied with them, they're likely dissatisfied with the company.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
usually
True.
mutual. And if
Yeah.
we can treat each other with good human behavior, and avoid waiting so long that you become hurt, then you can
Mm.
have the conversation that says, I don't think this is working out. Do you? And they're like, no, I don't. And they're like, okay, how can I get you to your best place? How can I help be a part of your next story? And it's a mindset shift. It really is, but it's a way to soften the pain that comes from it. Um, and your journey is not dissimilar. We've seen it take anywhere, like I can walk in with a new client and probably within month one, I'm like, employee A is the problem. And straight up. And it's just a matter of how willing is the business owner. But I had one business owner, it took 3 years. And I will tell you, at the end of that 3 years, it wound up being a lot more dramatic than it probably needed to be.
Yeah. Probably. Yeah. The longer. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like a breakup, right? Like
Yes.
if you drag it out, it's not going to get any easier. It's probably just going to get harder. And
Yeah.
you know,
But you brought up the good enough, right? And Jim Collins will say that good is the enemy of great. There's
yeah.
another concept like the beta paradox. As long as things are
Mhm.
tolerable, we don't tend to take action. It has to
Yep.
be much, much worse in order to
Yep.
take action. And even if we go back to 4 questions ago, Wes, when we're like, what are the mistakes that people make? Not taking action. Don't allow good enough to determine your business, because if it's good, it's actually going downhill. You just
Mm.
can't see it because it erodes 1% every day. But over a year, that can be 37%. It all adds up.
Yeah. It's a
So
great point.
don't wait for the catastrophe. Don't wait for the drama. Stop using
Yeah.
social media as your business mentor. Get busy. Do something, even if it's imperfect, even if it's the wrong thing. Do that, because it leads you so much closer, so much quicker to the right thing, to getting all the things you say you wanted from your business. And you deserve it. You don't. There's no reason to wait anymore. Time is on your side.
Yeah, that's such good advice, right? The if it's good, it's actually going backwards, and
Mhm.
if it's just, so slow that you don't notice it on a day-to-day basis. Like I've that's happened to us in our businesses for sure. Um so and this maybe kind of ties into the other thing you'd mentioned, which is purpose, right? And
Yeah.
we've talked about clarity of vision. You even mentioned that, the purpose for a business owner can change over time, and
Yep.
sometimes that's a function of, hey, the business is growing, and you're really starting to get some of what you were really wanting out of the business. In some cases, maybe the purpose changes and the business owner doesn't even really recognize that the purpose
Yeah.
has changed. um, what advice do you give to someone to maintain that clarity of vision and make sure that they're continuing to really be aware of their purpose? Because if you've got someone that's been in business for 4 or 5 years and they have been kind of rolling the roller coaster, like they may have had great clarity of
Yeah.
vision in the beginning when they started, but you can lose sight of that. Your priorities can change, your purpose can change. So like, do you have any sort of a protocol, where whether it's monthly or quarterly or annually, where you recommend kind of sitting down and going through some sort of a process to reestablish that clarity of vision and figure out, like, hey, has the purpose changed at all, or do I need to recalibrate? Any tactics along those lines?
Yeah, we actually we start off every client engagement with the vision and what is the vision, and kind of letting our clients walk through a pretty easy process to kind of just start to spitball again. I think when we think of vision, we think we've got to be able to print it on letterhead and t-shirts and signs in the office, if you will. And I rather keep it a little bit more of a work in progress, because I find
Mhm.
then people are willing to play. And I would highly suggest you do this at least once a year. Um,
Okay.
Maybe more than that if you've had a traumatic experience in your business. I know 2020, obviously, we know what was happening at the beginning of the year. We lost my father-in-law about the same time
Mhm.
all that stuff was going down. And I was at that moment of going, is this what I want to do? Is this where I want to spend the next 10 years of my life? And ultimately I said yes. And now I want to triple down on it. And that was this. But I was at that moment in time to where I was okay asking myself the question and
Yeah.
understanding that it didn't discount everything that I have done before. It's just about the future. So I
Mm.
do think having those moments or being willing to do it is good. But the other thing I will say is shake it up. Like we tend to, with our clients, especially if we see they're very routine oriented, we'll shake it up. We'll give them a different kind of visioning exercise. And the reason
Okay.
is if you rely on routine, then it starts to become about checking boxes,
Yeah.
you know, and you're
Totally.
trying to
Yeah.
just put down the right answer, but maybe not the true answer. And if I
Hmm.
shake things up on you enough, right, then you come at it from different ways and we get greater clarity versus a robotic repetition, if you will.
Yeah, just going through the motions and not even really thinking about what you're doing as you go
Yeah.
through that. Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, it's valuable having somebody in your corner who goes, "Why? Why? Why is that important? Why you? Why now?"
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, we all kind of have these beliefs that we just kind of adopt over time, and
Mhm.
and I think there's a lot of value to having some sort of a coach that is looking at it from a different perspective. They're not in it every single day like you are, so they've got um, a little bit of a fresh perspective. And then, like in your case, you're working with all these other companies and all these other clients too, so I imagine there's plenty of opportunities to take something that you've learned or seen work with another client and say, hey,
Mhm.
I think this really applies over here as well, we can borrow from that.
Well, and what I love is that when our clients really get tuned into their purpose and their vision and what they're growing toward, it is so different. I mean, we've got people that want to sell their business and move abroad. We have people that just want to take a killer of a trip next year with their family. People that want to have bigger impact in the world and change things for the better. I think it's our jolly, it's our fun, if you will, to support those types of things and get to see people dream again, because it's really what it's about. Business is nothing more than a dream brought to reality, right?
Mm.
But when you lose your vision, you lose the ability to dream. And so we have to gain that. We have to protect it, cultivate it, and use it as a power tool in the business, if you will. But always so super cool to see how different they really are.
Yeah, that is cool. So it maybe kind of in closing, for your firm specifically, who may be a good client for you?
So our best clients are searching for something more. They're searching for something better in their business. They're also probably looking at they've hustled and grind just a little bit a long enough time that they don't have all the things they feel like they should have to show for it. So be it
Right.
time freedom, be it money freedom, those aspects. But there is that instance that I can still grow, I can still scale. So we'll just help them work with the money parts of it, get the business growing and scaling in a sustainable way, like all the ways we've been talking about. But ultimately to reach an improved quality of life for our business owners so that you have something to show for it at the end of the day. But yeah, then in a lot of different ways, we can help those business owners that are just, they're ready for more. They're ready for more from their business, greater impact, those ideas.
Yeah, all makes sense. Are you looking for owners that have been in business for a certain amount of time or at a certain revenue level, or is that not so as important? More just they kind of have enough experience. They're like, hey, I don't want to stay on this hamster wheel that I've been on. I need to change something.
Yeah.
'Cause I think
I think that's the key, right?
that's the
Is like
key. Yeah.
you and I've talked about. Either you're ready to get off the feast and famine roller coaster and do some things a little different. You're ready to get off the hamster wheel. You know you deserve more. You just don't know what, and you don't
Mm.
know how. That's where we are. Our businesses do tend to be kind of variety. Like there is no age. They do come in a couple of stages, but even that isn't the most important thing. The most important thing is that you're ready to change. You're ready for it to be better, and we can definitely help with that.
Yeah, and that's kind of another question I had, and maybe you've already answered it,
Yeah,
in that, but like should someone that's maybe just recently started a business or maybe even hasn't started a business yet, should they be thinking about bringing in some sort of a coach, or do you feel like some of that, like, just real world experience, maybe get punched in the face a few times, is going to make you more receptive to the coaching, or is there value to having? I mean, this is one of the arguments I would make
yeah,
for, some of the benefit of buying a franchise versus starting something from scratch is, you have someone in the franchisor. You also have other franchise owners that have been at it longer than you have when you're brand new, that are there to give you some guidance and give you some coaching and support you and say, hey, yeah, we've been through this too, or, hey, watch out for
yeah,
that pothole. And you can save a lot of time, money, and heartache by avoiding some mistakes.
yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think there's no gold star for doing it alone. At the end of the day, you accept an award and you get up there and you said, I did it all by myself. That's not much of a story. Let's be honest. It's not what people are going to be interested in hearing from you. You're going to pay for your learnings one way or the other. Why not choose the quickest, cheapest route? Even though it might have an investment for you today. If you think about it, if you look at any Olympic athlete, look at any major sports team that makes it to the pinnacle of their sport,
Sure.
nobody's doing it by themselves. In fact,
No.
there's a lot of people involved in that success, in
Yeah.
making sure that the team or the person performs at their utmost ability. I think it's part of that hustle and grind myth that we started talking about at the very
Yeah.
beginning
It
that
is.
says you're the only one who can do it. No, it's just not true. So it just matters really about what's most important to you at the end of the day. Are you willing to be exceptional? Are you willing to do it differently? And if you are, then probably doing it alone probably isn't what you're going to choose.
Yeah. Well said. So you got a new book out.
We do.
First this, then that.
Yes.
I've read through part of it. We'll finish the rest of it soon. It's fantastic so
Oh,
far.
thank
It goes
you.
into a lot more detail on some of the things that we've covered today, plus things we didn't even have a chance to cover or touch on today. So would highly encourage people to check that out. Where can people find the book? Where can they maybe connect with you and hear more from you? Because I mean, I know I've gotten a ton, out of today's conversation, the conversation we had prior to this. I know the audience has gotten a ton out of it as well. So where can people go if they want to hear more from you, find the book, or even potentially, reach out to you to see about engaging in your services?
Sure. The easiest way is going to be to head over to our website. We actually have a page just for your podcast. It's at
Okay.
yourbizrules.com/P2F. So Paul, the numeral 2, F is in Frank, and
Love it.
you'll be able to access all of that there. Plus, we have given you kind of a little bit of a free gift. So we actually have a book discussion guide that goes along with First This and That. So just to allow you to do some of that reflection we've been talking
Yeah.
about the whole time, right? So you'll be able to download that for free, grab your book, and when it's the right time, be able to chat with our team and see
Yeah.
how we can help you on your next journey.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you for setting that up for the listeners, and we'll make sure to put that in the show notes, make it very easy for people to find. And I'll be checking out the guide that goes along with the book as well. So that's a
Awesome.
really cool resource. I appreciate you doing that for our listeners. But
Happy to.
Leslie, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Love what you're doing to help entrepreneurs really get the freedom out of business ownership that they set out looking for in the first place. So keep up the great work. And thank you
You
so
as well.
much for dropping in here on the Path to Freedom podcast.
Thanks for having me, Wes.